It has been well over, I think, a month since I was last in this world, and in that time a lot has happened, a lot has needed to be dealt with. The holidays came and went, this, that, whatever. Anyway, these poor people have been without power for so long, and you guys have been without an episode of Lost River County for the same amount of time. So for that, I would like to apologize. A lot happened in the last month that needed to be taken care of, but everything should be good to go now. We are ready to get back into the good people, We are ready to get back to helping the people of Lost River County. So, one other thing happened during that time. I actually had episode 2 and the start of episode 3 recorded when I decided I just needed to step away and start over. You see, what happened was I was trying to find a place where we could increase our population. This map is absolutely fantastic, but one of my own mistakes is that I didn't realize how hilly the original starting tiles were. The problem with that comes when we don't reach our landscaping until a population of 1,200, and at the start of episode 2, what I very intelligently may have done is removed every single person from our entire town by creating a new district style and essentially telling them all to leave their house and rebuild and come back. That took the better part of 40 minutes to get everyone to move back to the area. So essentially we spent the first 40 minutes of episode 2 just dead. We didn't have anything. And when I watched back a lot of the footage of that, I realized that was a terrible mistake. Then I spent another 30 minutes trying to find a place to add homes to the town. Now, what I initially said I was going to do was build a bridge over here, except I didn't realize that cargo ships and cruise ships come right down this river, Lost River, all the way through here. So a small little 2-lane bridge coming over the river would look absolutely beautiful and then be smashed into by a cruise ship by the end of it. And what I ended up settling on near the end of that episode was expanding our residential out into this area, creating a new highway connection to this highway right here, and essentially cutting off this town. And something that I've been thinking about through that is there's not too much flat land for us to build a large metropolitan area, so what we're going to have to do is work with what we have. I think this up on the cliffside would be a fantastic place to have some of our larger city stuff, so that's what we'll be doing in this area up here in the future. But for now, a lot of Lost River County is simply going to be smaller towns that's focused much more on detailing, which I think will make for a fun experience, but we are still going to have a major city in this area right here for those that are interested in that. I figure we can kind of make this a city somewhat like Orlando is what I'm thinking of, where there's this beautiful feature lake right in the center of the, well, not center, but right in the downtown area. So what that means is we're going to be starting this episode by essentially creating our new district so that we can have the right style. Now, I already set up the district styles that I want to be using in this, but in order to do this, we're going to have to be very careful. I don't want to completely nuke our town again, which is what I did last time. First things first, though, we need to talk about a few things. So the names that I chose in the last episode are the names that I'm going to choose. Well, I guess the Lost episode are the same names that I'm going to choose here. We had a lot of good suggestions, but what I'm going to name this area right here is River Bend. Someone suggested this. I'll put the comment up on the screen now, and I absolutely loved the idea for it. So obviously the river bends right through here. It reminds me of a house that we lived in Chattanooga last year. I absolutely love the way this looks. So we're going to name this town River Bend. Later on in this episode, we're going to create a farming district up here. We're going to need to flatten some of the land through here in order to make this work. As we can see, it's a little bit more hilly than what we can really work with. But if we just use our landscaping tools, we can flatten that terrain, and we're going to name that Milroy Farms. We're also going to create an industrial mining area, probably somewhere over here, and for that we're going to use the name Valentine, which was also suggested. I'll put the comment up on the screen now. So if you have any more suggestions for names of areas or districts, please be sure to leave them in the comments below. But for now, let's get back and let's finally give these people the power they deserve. So let's go ahead and just play this real quick, and we'll go ahead and start drawing our district. One thing I did want to do, though, is we want to make this a historic McDonald's. I have this tendency where I always want to pause the game. It's a habit I'm gonna have to break in order to do this, but we can work through that. So we'll call this McDonald's of River Bend. So now this is a historical building. I do want to move it onto the corner though. We can get rid of this general store right here because it's not necessarily what we're going for. So we can just move it, grab this McDonald's, and drag it down to the side. This is now the McDonald's of River Bend. It's an iconic little landmark, and I think it works, I would say, perfectly. It's quite American to have a McDonald's right off the highway like that. In fact, I think McDonald's would actually prefer they could just be on the highway, but it's right there. So now that this is historical, it's still zoned. It should be able to stay there without any issues, I think. If it doesn't, we'll have to come back and plop it down, but I think we should be good. So I think what I actually want to do is use the smallest brush we can possibly use and use our roads as guidelines in order to draw this. I'm gonna skip or at least fast forward through most of this because frankly it seems pretty boring, and I already realize a fatal flaw. I've gone too far. So for this we're going to use suburban commercial, which is one that I have custom set, a historic one, and big suburbs. Now I know not all of these are going to look quite right and we're going to have to tweak this over time, but that's okay. We can do that pretty easily. So now, as we can see, these people are just moving out. Our population's about to start dropping as we hit 810, but that's okay. We'll get there. The houses that we should see come in should match more of the style that I was thinking, which you'll be able to see in the top corner of the screen right now. Here's to hoping that our McDonald's doesn't go away. If it does, it's going to be a sad, sad day. Anyway, if we speed up the simulation real quick, we should be able to start seeing people move out and then houses start appearing again. In the meantime, I already know what's going to happen because I've had to play through this once already. We need a bit more industrial in order to meet the demand. And I also think something I would like to do when we unlock landscaping tools is fence this off. I don't necessarily think we would just allow this to be kept. I mean, a huge substation with all of the power of the city just accessible right off the highway. A car could just come crash straight into this, and then everyone experiences what these poor people have over here. And there's the cargo ship that just absolutely wrecked my last episode. Thanks. We're starting to see these older houses come through here now. I hope our fire department can respond to this pretty soon. Guys? Girls? Anyone? I just realized the reason that the fire department couldn't respond to anyone is because we don't have a fire department. I think because we're such a small town right now, we would choose a small fire department like this. I think maybe we should localize it a little bit closer to the highway, and we can do that if we just come down here and place it. That pretty much works out. They may not be the happiest about that tree there, but there we go. Save the trees. Okay, so now we have actual power problems. I think the easiest way for us to fix this is to just take these two and duplicate them so that we can see where they need to go. I think that should be sufficient. That should start producing enough power for us. If we look at our available electric, we have just enough. All right, perfect. So now everyone should have power. So if we just draw another block or 2 blocks up through here, we should see these people start to move out and their houses start to demolish. And we essentially just need to carry this all the way through the rest of the city. Now, I'm getting a little bit bold here by telling all of these people to move out, but we have enough residential demand that I think we can pull it off. One of the problems in the last episode is that I did it at a time when we had no residential demand. So I essentially had to create artificial demand for this to happen. It didn't go well. That was crazy. It feels so good to be back. I'm happy to be making Cities videos again. Over the last month, I haven't really been able to play Cities at all. So it's nice to be able to play again and actually get to sit down and enjoy the game. So luckily, it looks like our McDonald's did stay and an Arby's moved in right next to it. This really is becoming small town America. Although, I don't know that you would see something this nice, but we have an Applebee's. And if that is not the staple of a growing town, I don't know what is. While that's working itself out, something else I wanted to do was create Main Street. So I need to come up here to toggle it and turn on our road names, which I can never remember which one it is. This is what I think would... Ooh, I just realized this may not make the most sense as Main Street. It's quite small, but I think we can make it work. So we will name this Main Street. Make sure this path goes all the way down the road. We unlocked an achievement for that, which is interesting. So So let's see, how are we doing on healthcare? We look to be doing pretty good. Fire safety, we're sufficient. If you live out here, you're kind of not in the best place, but we need some police stations. So I'm trying to think. I thought I had, yes I do. I have this small police station. I think, or at least I feel, what we would see is something closer to this small sheriff's office. By the way, this is also my first time messing with the financial districts pack. I know this came out forever ago, but it's the first time that I've been able to mess with it. So this could work, but it looks like it's a little more tropical than what we would see. Let's see, if we turn off info views and come over here, what does this look like? You know, I think that could work. I think it is actually something that could work. The tower, I'm not an architect, so that's probably not what it's called. At the top may not necessarily be the best, but I think this could work. So if we plop the police station down here, that kind of works, minus the fact we have all these trees through here. Something that is interesting to me is there's no terrain paint around here. That looks absolutely awful, but it's just weird to me there's no place for people to park. I think for that, there's 2 Applebee's here, which I don't necessarily think would be the best idea. What we can do is just take this out. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait, and then we'll put a park here that has a parking lot in it. That way people can park and go to the actual police station. I just think that's a little bit weird. And there we go. Now everyone is conforming to our new district style. We have a little bit left on our industrial demand, so we can just come back here. And I think it would be safe at this point to just zone a little bit through here. I don't suspect that we'll need that much power, that it would take up this entire grid through here. By that point, I think we'll be disconnected from River Bend, and we'll be over probably working somewhere up here. While our population rebuilds, though, let's come up here and draw this new district up here, which we're going to name Valentine. This is a reference to Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a game that I got into right about the same time that I started this series. So let's come up here and just name this Valentine. So I have plans for this area, which is why I gave it such a large amount of landmass. If we turn up our district zones, you can see, I mean, there's River Bend. Sunset Hills, which needs to be Valentine, is massive. I mean, this is a large area, but I gave it so much space that way we can work with it. We have a lot of hills through here, so I think it would be good to give it as much space as possible. That way we can actually do something with the land we have. So our residential demand is back, and I have a plan for what we're going to do this time. So what we need to do is grab this road right here so we can just continue this down. Zoning adjuster always moves itself. And let's head back to 1x speed. That way we can actually focus on what we're doing here. So in the Lost episode, we created a neighborhood down through here, separating it a little bit from this space with a bit of commercial. So I think what we need to do is grab, do I have the right tool? Yes. I think what I'm going to do is give it as much space as possible. Let's bring this down a significant amount. We'll bring this out 8. And I think we should be able to connect these 2 roads pretty easily now. There we go. Now this meets at a nice and smooth 90 degrees. And now we'll be able to come up here and almost perfectly meet this. I actually didn't mean to make this line up as perfectly as it does, but I did. I'm impressed. Alright, I think the smart thing to do would be to give it enough space, but not too much. That was the most vague sentence I've ever said in my life. Alright, something I do want to do, we'll just go ahead and disable zoning on this. That way we don't have any zoning through there. And now that we've disabled zoning through there, what we can do is come into node controller, and we can work on this node a little bit. Let's turn contour lines off so we don't get confused on anything. Square this up, and I think if we increase the offset a little bit, this is large, but I think with intersection marking tool we can make this work. We will turn off lane markings and we'll come over here and do the exact same thing, turn off lane markings. I don't know why a pedestrian would need to cross to enter onto the highway like this. But now let's grab our intersection marking tool. We should be able to come down through here. So we need to create a filler, which we can do by holding Alt. And I think what would make the most sense is just to make this pavement of some sort. There we go. That is not the most beautiful work of art that anyone has ever done, but it works. So we have fillers, and then as we come down through here, we can see how this separates and splits. I don't love that there's a little bit of clipping right here, but I'm not entirely sure there's anything we can do about that. It seems like that is just how that's going to be. Let's go ahead and upgrade this road. We will turn zoning back on and upgrade this road just the rest of the way through here. That way these trucks can hop on the highway as quickly as possible any way they want to go. So we have a large amount of residential demand right now, clearly. And we have no demand for commercial or industrial. And I think that's all due to the fact that there's not enough people to work in these places. So what we can do to fix that is, originally I had a nice little neighborhood drawn out through here. I think that's what we'll come back and do again. We'll bring this down, 3. And then let's grab our curved road tool. And I want to give this just enough space to where we have some waterfront lots, maximizing our zoning as best as possible. So looks like I may need to redo this and prioritize newer roads, and let's see how that turns our zoning. Yeah, there we go. That looks to be more like what we want. There's another cruise ship that absolutely wrecked how we were playing last time, and we will fork this off and come down just a little bit. Now, this has ended up creating a giant cul-de-sac, and I'm kind of okay with that. I feel like in a smaller town like this, you would see some neighborhoods that are like this. I know it's not the most preferred thing in the world, but I think in a town of this size, and especially in something that is as old as it is something you would see. We could fix it really quickly by just adding a connection right here. And in fact, I think that's probably something we should do. And then now we just have this tiny little section right here, which we could connect, but we're not going to. That's quite a bit of trouble for what we're looking to accomplish here. So one of the problems that we could run into is this district style doesn't have any type of an industry selected. So if we just draw over this entire district, all of the industry is going to leave. Trust me. To fix that, I think what we can do is select big industries, but let me make sure that we have stuff in there to begin with. So if we select big industries, included, we have these big factories. I think these look amazing, but the problem is they don't necessarily fit what we're looking for here. Let's create a new style, that way we can fix this. We'll just call this River Bend. So now we have River Bend Industry. We can come over here and quickly just run through everything that we think would make sense in an area like this. All right, I think that should be able to be exactly what we need at this point. All right, so now if we click on styles, we can select River Bend Industry, hit save, and now we can draw our district the rest of the way around this. So I think the easiest thing to do would be just continue this down. And there we go. We have once again made the classic mistake that we tend to make of having no demand for industry and telling everyone to move out. I don't know why I do this to myself. One of the ways we can fix that is by coming in here and placing some nice lots. Essentially what we're doing here is just giving some people some waterfront lots. That way there can be some nicer houses in River Bend in the future. But ultimately, I don't know that anyone's going to move in because we don't have any water pipes under the roads. All right, and there we go. We have water under the roads. Let's see, is our power going to hop from over there? I think it will if we put one of these small transformers here, but I don't necessarily want to do that yet because I think that could mess us up in the long run. Mainly because those little power transformers actually generate power on their own. So they output 10 megawatts of power. But nevertheless, something we can continue working on is these roads. If we come back here, take these dirt roads, we should be able to turn our road guidelines and actually everything back on. And I think the way this follows, we should be able to come all the way down and create the rest of our neighborhood. So I think as long as this is prioritizing new roads, it should disable the zoning from that road almost completely. We can zone some commercial down through here in this section, and we'll be sure to plant plenty of trees so that people don't necessarily have to look straight at the landfill, because who would really want to do that? So I think if we take our roads, we should be able to maximize as much zoning as possible. I'm not entirely sure how many people would want to necessarily live right next to the industrial park, but I think for what we're going for, it could work. So what we will end up doing is placing a lot of trees through here. That way they're not necessarily stuck right downwind from this guy. But yeah, so now we have a large amount of residential demand, and absolutely nobody is moving to the area because there aren't any city services. At least that's what I would assume people are refusing to move here for. So school capacity, we have 75 eligible, 270 capacity. Police, we seem to be doing pretty well on. Crime rate is 7%, and jail availability is pretty good. Fire, looks like we're doing okay. We have a somewhat high fire hazard, but I think if we just add another fire station right here, we should be pretty solid on fire. I mean, there's all of that and the fact that the entire map is red, but we should be pretty good. That lowered it 3%, and that actually makes a difference when everything is red. So now if we could just get a little bit through here, I think the easiest thing to do is zone these two lots right here. This should be able to jump the power, and it does. There we go. We have the new neighborhood being built. And as soon as everything kind of fills in here, we can remove this power line because I don't love the way that looks. So right now, honestly, I think the best thing we could do is just wait for these neighborhoods to fill in. I think at this point what we need is to reach our next milestone, which it looks like that will be coming at 1200, and that's what allows us to create the park that we're going to build over here. It also is going to allow us to create certain industrial areas, which we have plans for, as well as start our landscaping, which is something we desperately need. So I think the best thing to do, set this to 3 speed and wait for us to hit that population while responding to really any needs that come up. So I'll just fast forward and skip through all of this, and we'll jump back when people have moved in. Alright, so if we just zone the rest of this as well, getting as much residential as we possibly can, because we have tons of demand and people are now starting to complain that there are no workers, which would make sense. No one's moving in. Alright, so we are starting to see a decrease in our massive residential demand. I think if we come back here, we can zone some of this. I would like to reserve possibly a little path through here that people could walk. I mean, maybe it would allow them to get closer access to their job. And then let's look at our terrain lines really quick. I think we could probably pull off another house or two up through here, but I'm wondering if that's necessary. We'll say this is a private drive. Let's see if we can place down a house. Is this zoned? Yeah, it's zoned. Alright, let's see if we can just get a house to spawn in here. Maybe we can come back at one point and make this a little bit of a nicer house. I don't necessarily know why you would build a nice house next to the interstate and a train track, but you know, whatever works. Maybe it's what someone wants. In fact, I think what would actually be cool is if we come in here, and since we said we were going to focus on detailing a little bit more, maybe we can just start focusing on that now. This is neat. I feel like this is something that you would have seen in this area at the time. Let's plop this in. I think that's what we're going to go for here. And then we'll make this historical. They don't have water. We'll give them a quick connection to the water, and I know we've paused. I just don't necessarily want this to go anywhere. Actually, I can unpause if I just dezone this, make this historical. I think this will stay if I remove zoning. I think. May not. But anyway, if we just come down through here, give them access to water, which, you know, I can understand how they might want that. Alright, that should stay. So now if we come through here, we can zone the rest of this residential. But I mean, we are getting very, very close to our population goal of 1,200. So hopefully we can hit that very soon. I would love to unlock the landscaping so that we could detail this a little bit more. But until we do that, we are kind of at the mercy of the game. I think something that would be neat is to take some of these trees and duplicate them down through here. I feel like that gives it just a little bit more of an effect when you come up through here. And then we should probably put some trees through here as well. Just to block off the fact that they do live what is now the entrance to a highway. And then we can actually bulldoze some of this to give them a bit of a yard. There we go. I like that. If there were a little lake or a river here, it would be like the house in the Notebook, kind of. So I'm not entirely sure if we're going to reach our population goals with the way this is currently set. As you can see, our demand is all the way up, and we are losing people, which means people aren't moving here anymore. So I think what we can do is zone some of this. Since I don't necessarily know this can be a highway, this is going to just end up being a road because this is, as it stands right now, the highway that leads to nothing. So I don't entirely think we would see this as a highway. All right, it does look like we are starting to have some water availability issues, yeah, as well as some electric issues. I think the easiest way to fix that is just to put some more solar panels in here, so we can grab this with move it, and we can just duplicate. I don't think we need that many. That was not what we wanted to do. We can grab these, duplicate them, and send them back. So I think adding 4 would have been too much. Yeah, that gets us just to where we need to be. And water availability. So I think if we look at our budget, if I remember correctly from episode 1, which feels like it was so long ago. If we look at our budget, so we didn't necessarily need more of the sunshine things, the solar panels. What we did need is to increase our budget, which I told you in the beginning of episode 1 that I would absolutely forget that we needed to increase our budget before we added more infrastructure, and that's exactly what happened. I can predict the future. All right, so we have finally reached Tiny Town again, and what that will allow us to do is to create parks, as well as it gives us access to high schools and some new schools, as well as I think a library, but I don't know that it's for the full thing. But it also allows us to create parks. This is something that I've been waiting for, and we can also do landscaping. So let's just increase our water budget just a little bit. We should see our water availability at least come up just a bit. Yeah, that was significantly more than what we needed it to do, but that works. Okay. While we're over here, let's go ahead and fence this area off. I don't necessarily love the fact that there's no fence around it, so if we look, what fence would make the most sense to use? So minus the fact it's a different color, for no reason I can think of other than just to be annoying, it looks like we're going to have the most success with this. So give that a 90-degree angle. Come down here, give this a 90-degree angle. And then I suppose what would actually be easier is to just give everything a 90-degree angle by doing that. And we should be able to completely fence this area in. That worked surprisingly well. Okay, so now that we have that set in place, we have a nice little fence around that. I think that's what we were looking for. We can come back over here and we can plop down this park that I was talking about earlier. So we can just put that in. Now this acts as a park, but it also allows us to have some parking down through here, which I think would be pretty necessary. I mean, I've personally never seen a police station that didn't have some sort of parking. And we can create, we can create some trees around it like that, just to give it a bit of separation from the Quality Tools lowest price Harbor Freight. Our CPR Wireless went out of business. Okay, so we had talked in the last episode about creating a park down through here. I still think that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and create this park. So as far as the name of the park goes, I'm going to rely on your suggestions to see what we should name it. I think there are a few different ways we could take it, whether we just name it Riverbend Memorial Park, which is quite basic, or if we decide to create some lore behind it and give it a story. That way we can say that it's named after this significant person who was in the town at the time, this, that, or really whatever else. Okay, so first thing we need to do to create this park is turn off info views, because that drives me nuts. And let's come and create our city park. So I think what may be the best option is to just use a small main gate and create our own custom parking. I don't love the parking that comes with this. It's not the worst thing in the world. I just think it takes up more space than what you can do otherwise. So I think the smartest thing to do would be to create this, or to create the path right here and then branch off of it. So if we turn on our contour lines, it looks like we have quite a ways to go back. I think we should do that pretty much right away. That way we can have as straight of a line as possible so that we can add our buildings onto the path. At least follow this. So I think what we needed was about this much space. Let's see, how's that work? That is absolutely perfect for what we want. Okay, you know what? We have the terrain tools. We have the ability to do this now. I didn't necessarily want to do it this way, but if we just bring this out a little bit, we can just ruin all of it. That's what we wanted. All right, easiest thing to do from this point is turn on our road guidelines, grab this, and we can just connect that up, and it creates a nice smooth line. All right, so from here, something we can do is just add in a little bit of our own parking. I'm not going to bother building a custom parking lot for this, because I think the way we're going to go about it will be sufficient. So if we just add a couple of these in, these act as a park, so they also give it a bit of a cheeky boost. But I think for what we're going for, it's going to be the best option. Oh, what is happening? Okay, grab this. Let's come down here. How's that do? That creates a nice small curve, which is just about the best we could ask for. So now if we come down here, draw a straight line down through there, we could actually do, I wonder if we can do a secondary gate. Wasn't I just saying that like the main gate took up too much parking area? And here I am like, let's make it as big as possible. Feel like that should be sufficient for what we're going for. I was just trying to give people another pathway they could join onto. But I do think that we should be able to, but yeah, the park comes down to about here. I don't know if we'll continue it that far or if we'll just end it right here. I guess it depends on how far we want to take this park and what all we can fit into it. But yeah, for now, let's go ahead and plop our info booth in. I'm gonna give this a little bit of space from the road. That way we can upgrade the road at some point. And in fact, to mark that off, let's go ahead and just bring this down. Turn off our guidelines for a moment. I don't know how kindly these people would take to having their house essentially just fenced off, but I think it would be better than the alternative, which would be there's nothing protecting your house from the people that are in the park. I mean, it's hard to say someone couldn't just jump over that fence, but, you know, or just walk down the street like they're doing. So let's take a quick look. What other assets can we add to this? Obviously, we need to add in some restrooms. I think what actually may be a good idea, since we have this space down here, if we take this and connect it up, I think people are going to be able to walk from there to there and enter the park for free. I don't necessarily mind that people can enter the park for free. In fact, it's not usually a money-making endeavor for me. So what I may do is just drop that to 0. But I would like to be able to track the visitors through the main gate. But for now, let's go ahead and add our restrooms right over here. We will put that as close to the parking lot as possible. That way people can come in and, you know, whatever they need to do. Okay, so finishing off this park, I think it would be smart to go ahead and probably create a branch down through here where we can add a few more assets. So looking at it, I think all we really have access to right now is some cafes, which could work. I think it would actually be cool to have 2 cafes down through here, and then we could set up kind of a, I guess, a dining area over here. I think there's an asset that would work really well over here. Some of the gazebos would be cool. I think what would actually be the best option is, we don't want to make that a brush, is to come down here, and I hate how these line up. It's something I've always really disliked about the game. I don't understand why the paths have curves in them and then this asset is a square. I mean, the only way it makes sense to do something like that is if you line it up not on the corner. But then again, that doesn't necessarily always look the best. Anyway, from this point, we can just duplicate these. Anyway, that has done some very interesting clipping down through there. It has turned the grass a different color. Something we do need to focus on in a moment is getting some more people in this town. So let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick. I think we could probably just zone the rest of this in, leaving some space there for the path that we talked about in the first episode. But overall, I mean, no one's going to move into this area because these require 4 deep, and none of these are 4 deep, so that really did nothing. Anyway, working more on the park, let's add some trash cans for people to be able to throw their stuff away without littering our parks, even though there are tons of trash cans. So if we grab these tables again, I think what would make most sense is corner, 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 middle, 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 middle. This is apparently meant for like a really large city for a lot of people to come eat here, which, I mean, considering it's the only 2 cafes on the waterfront, maybe that's what they would do. And there we go. I actually think that turned out a lot nicer than it could have. All right, let's add a couple of these carts in really quick. I think we would see something like this, and maybe a quick little shed next to it that people could not purchase anything from because they're faced in the opposite direction. So let's grab these really quick and just turn them around. So I think for now, that's pretty much the most we are going to be able to get out of the park. We can add some of these signs in here and just make it look a little bit nicer. But overall, I mean, the park is kind of at a point where we just need to detail it a little bit more. I think something we might see through here would actually be some of the trees. So if we just select some trees, I think we would see possibly just a little bit through here as what I would assume would be a windbreak of some sort. So we can come through here, kind of just lighten this up a little bit. There we go. I think that actually works really well. All right, sweet. Now we have the park, and again, leave a suggestion in the comments below for a name for the park. But I think from this point, we are pretty much good to wrap up this episode. So we are ending this episode in the same place that the last episode was ended, and I think that is pretty much where we need to end. So we are gaining 0 people, but we did make it to 1,245, which is a big amount. We also have $220,000 in the bank, which I think is pretty significant for what is essentially the second episode of this series. So I'm very proud of that. We have our historic McDonald's. We have Main Street, which I think we will rename to this because it leads directly to the railroad tracks. But yeah, overall, I am much happier with where this episode ended than I was where the Lost episode ended, and I'm very happy that we were able to get through this one. It was a bit of a struggle. You know, it was a bit slower than what I would have hoped for in this episode, which is the problem that I really ran into in the Lost one, which was that it was just very slow and it wasn't progressing. But this time around, I feel like we made a lot of progress, and I'm very happy with that. In episode 3, we are going to come up here and create an industrial area, and for that, we are going to create some farmland up through here. So we will need to come through in between episodes, or possibly at the start of the next episode, flatten up this terrain through here. That way we have a flat space to at least connect to the highway for easy access. So yeah, I am super happy with that. Very happy with where this episode ended, and I am very excited to record the next one. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions for what you would like to see out of this series or out of this town, River Bend, let me know in the comments below. I look forward to your suggestions as always, and I will see you in the next video.